walk, so I have my crutches, but I'm on antibiotics, so I'm walking again, which is good, but I have to sit because I don't want to mess up. But you know how sometimes antibiotics make you a little loopy? So this is it. Okay, so just for announcement, and we miss David. He's speaking at Anthony Trask's church out in South Salem Fellowship Church, while Anthony and his wife were at a seminar down in Southern California, and so he asked Philip and I to speak, and we're really excited because we love you guys and we're family. So life group or home groups are really important, and we have two. We have ours and we have the Patches. If you can't go to one, go to the other. The next one is on Thursday, November 21st. It'll be at the Paget's. And so I'll have more going out in email so you know details of what they're going to have for food, etc. We have great worship time. And then I started thinking that the men were having the huddle breakfast like they did this morning. But why not the ladies could have the breakfast club? And so looking for breakfast places here in Salem, I thought, why don't we start at the kitchen and discuss after there where else we could go. So that will be on the 24th from 8 to 9. And Friendsgiving, so Thanksgiving's coming up, and those of you who have leftovers and just want to have game night, the Goffs are so hospitable and opening up their home on Friday for Friendsgiving, just to come and bring whatever leftovers or something new that you have and hang out with them. And they're fun to be with. So we have a home group too. On Friday, December 6th from 6:30 to 8:30, and I'll put out more information about that, but we would love for you to come. I know, people have like limitations on house size. Our house is always a zoo, so more the merrier. We have a disco ball hanging in our family room, and I think every house should have a mirror ball. And we have strobe lights and everything, and maybe karaoke, but we're doing a white elf and Christmas party. And then Micah and Allie will be getting married on Sunday, December 8th at Missionville. And they said, put it out there, they are inviting the Ariana house, all the people at their church, they're inviting all their friends, and they invite everybody from here at our church. Christmas night of worship is on Thursday, December 12th, and the time is changing to 7. But I'll say 6:30 for people like Philip, so he's on time.
That's a good call.
And the last
That's a good call.
is a free lunch, Sunday, December 22nd. Come and we will have just fellowship time and celebrate Christmas. Okay? Oh, there's some. Okay.
Good.
Yeah, let's pray. Father God, I thank you so much for today. And I thank you, Father, for the opportunity for Philip and I to share what you have been placing on our hearts for weeks now. Not expecting that we would even be sharing, but I thank you for the privilege of speaking your word. I pray for your Holy Spirit's empowerment over everyone here, that you will impart your wisdom and your truth into their hearts, God. And I pray that there's no flesh of Phil and I, that we just speak from our hearts, Lord, that you will touch us and anoint us, so what is meant to be heard and pressed down into the lives of our friends here, God, will happen. So we praise your name. This service is for you. In Jesus' name. Amen. So when we were in Seattle, Philip, we were there this week for Philip to have a word. We were laying in bed, and I told him, I love fairy tales. So we were talking about fairy tales. And I love reading fairy tales, and I love reading the stories in God's Word. So we started talking about the differences. Now, God's Word is alive and true, and I love that. So I told Philip that my favorite fairy tale was Cinderella.
A little bit of context here, though.
Yeah.
A little bit of context. It's not exactly how it happened. We've actually been bonding like really cool the last 2.5 years, getting super close. And we've been working with David, and the whole thing about opening the basement and connecting is right on the money. We're actually laying in bed one of the nights, face to face, having this intimate conversation. And she's sharing with me. She goes, I love fairy tales as a kid. I'm like, which ones? And, it's funny, you married someone for 29 years, but you never talked about some of these little silly things about you think they're unimportant. So we're laying there, dim lights, just face to face, her and I, because I like Cinderella, I like, what's the other one I like?
Rumpelstiltskin.
Rumpelstiltskin. And I was like, well, I'd like, the Three Little Pigs, and I said, huff and puff, blow your house down. I mean, it's got enough violence in it. Action, right? And I said, I remember liking Jack and the Giant Beanstalk, and without breaking a note, she goes, "You would like something with beans in it, wouldn't you?"
Three rollies.
I was like, really? You're gonna go there?
The magic beans, and I'm thinking, well, there's no fairy tale with magic rice grains. Or anything like that. He doesn't know I put this in, but there's Philip. So today we're going to be talking to you about Joseph. And one of my favorites, it wasn't always, I was thinking about down in the lion's den or David and Goliath. But for whatever reason, one night I wake up about 3-4 weeks ago, and the Lord says to me, read Genesis chapter 37. Start reading Genesis chapter 37. We didn't know we were speaking, so a month ago. So I said, okay. And I opened it on my Bible app, and when you open it up, it doesn't give you those headings like in the written text. Oh, it's about blah, blah, blah. So I open it, and it's the beginning of the story of Joseph. And his story continues on from chapter 37 all the way to 50. Ends Genesis with the story of Joseph. So I started listening to it, and I started reading it. And the next day, I'm going to something else. He says, read Genesis 37. This has been going on for 3 or 4 weeks. So I'm telling Philip this, and he says, well, I've been reading the story of Joseph too. God has been having me read the story of Joseph. So all we've concentrated on for almost a month is on Joseph. So for those of you who went to Sunday school, my little Baptist Sunday school class, and they said Joseph and what's the story? Coat of many colors. And this is what we would see, right? Joseph and the coat of many colors, and everybody looking at him. They're all playing, and he has that colorful coat. And then this is the other story I would see. There he is, his hands all out, like, hey, look at me, I'm pretty cool. and the bad thing is, the brothers all look happy. They were not happy. And then I thought of Connie, because I thought, if she wrote the book, it would be Joseph and Amazing Technicolor. Yeah. And we have the Joseph King of Dreams. And this is where you're starting to see it's not about his coat. And then for the adults who want to see it, there. I like that book, that far off like the days. So I started reading it, and I said, the story's all about his coat. No, it's not. It's really about the dreams God had placed in his heart as a young child, and the fulfillment of those dreams in a way he did not expect. And so, I taught kindergarten for years, and I'm a literal thinker. So I really see things differently than other people do. But when I think of Joseph, this is actually what I see. It's like they're sacrificing him before they throw him into the pit. And they're holding him, and look at the look on his face, and the other guys, they should be looking angrier. But the truth is, it's about Joseph and the coat of many colors. He has his coat on, meant he was special, set apart. But he had these dreams about the sheaves bowing down to him, the sun, the moon, the stars bowing down to him.
Joseph's father is a guy named Jacob, and Jacob went down to his uncle Laban, and he fell in love with Rachel. And he tells Laban, I will work for you for 7 years for Rachel. But Laban pulls a quick one on him, and the night of his wedding gives him Leah. And he has to work 7 more years for Rachel. But Rachel, his wife, so the third column over, was the woman he loved. And in this family unit, they started having kids. And back in this ancient times and customs, having babies is really, really important as a sign of status and fertility. And unfortunately, Rachel's not having kids yet. So Leah cranks out 1, 2, 3, and 4, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah. And this creates some anxiety and some pain. So Rachel, who's not having babies, gives her handmaid or servant, and 5 and 6 come out, Dan and Naphtali. So this is kind of kids through Rachel via the handmaid. And it's kind of a strange custom we think about, right? And the Bible refers to these women both as concubines and as Jacob's wives. It's really interesting, kind of the texture of that relationship is different. I don't recommend you guys
That's not what you said the other day.
That's too complicated.
Leave it in antiquity, right? We just recognize the culture and the times are different. It's just well, Well, after Bilhah has Rachel's handmaid has two kids. Leah again gets jealous and gives her handmaid Zilpah, and 7 and 8 are born. Gad and Asher. Then Leah has 2 more, Issachar and Zebulun, and then a child, Dinah, female. And finally, Rachel has 2 kids. Now remember, Rachel was the one that Jacob loved, so he loved these kids more than the others. Unfortunately, there's favoritism here. Joseph becomes his favorite, and when Benjamin is born, Rachel dies. So his heart is left here, and he is in love with Rachel. These are his favorite kids. You see the favoritism. The next slide I just want to show you, because sometimes it is a little confusing. We talk about sometimes the 12 tribes of Israel. It's not technically the 12 kids that Jacob has. It's the 10 kids plus Joseph's 2. So take Joseph out. He's not a tribe of Israel, but his 2 kids are, Manasseh and Ephraim. And Levi, they become the priests. They don't have land. They're kind of distributed throughout the promised land. The 12 tribes of Israel are Jacob's 10 plus 2 from Joseph.
Okay, so we're going to go on with the story. I just thought that was really interesting. I had never taken the time to write the order of where the kids were. So we made that chart, and it really made a difference.
Wow.
My heart bled for
I stole
Leah.
the chart.
Yeah, my heart bled for Leah because I'm thinking she felt so unloved. So unloved. And I don't have it here. We'll have to share it sometime. Each of the kids' names has something about her grief. Finally, when she has Judah, she says, now I will praise him. And I love it. Now I will praise him. Genesis 37:2. So for some of these, I'll read the slides, but I won't read all of them. Isn't that a beautiful quote? This is the account of Jacob's family line. Joseph, a young man of 17, in fact, in one of the other translations it says boy, was tending the flocks with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and he brought their father a bad report about them. So initially he was shepherding with them, and then he went and quote unquote tattled, or maybe his heart was pricked because he wasn't going to do what his brothers were doing. Now Israel, Jacob, loved Joseph more than any of his other sons because he had been born to him in his old age. And I know as grandparents, there's a different kind of love when you're older with the children. So we kind of talked about that. And he made an ornate robe for him. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak a kind word to them.
This robe is really interesting. Kithoneth Hassin, maybe actually translated, actually means something that reaches to the ankles or to the wrists. Okay? The idea is that it's kind of a long tunic or a long robe. The idea of colors may be present in the original language. It's actually uncertain whether it's really, if it's colorful, or if it's really, like the 4th one down, a highly ornamented robe. It could be ornamented tunic, a coat reaching to the feet, a fine woolen cloak. But what's interesting is one scholar suggests it's a tunic or robe unique in design for showing special favor or relationship. That's the essence of this word. It's not whether it was multicolored, did it have red, green, and blue. It may have had that. It was more, this was a sense that you are special. Among all your brothers, you are my favorites. And this isn't a robe that you would work in. Yeah. This is the interesting thing about this robe, right? So remember, she was saying there's kind of a really quick progression that happens here. Jocelyn pointed out in the passage that first he was with his brothers, and he told on them. Next he has a robe, and the next thing we know, he's checking on his brothers. So once you think about that, it's almost like his brother put him in, his dad put him in a management position over his brother. I don't know how many of you grew up with siblings. I used to punk my brothers all the time. I'm serious. If my dad had put my younger brother over me, I would have been like, lost my mind. Not happening. But that's exactly what happened here. Joseph comes out of the field, tells on his brothers, and the reality is Joseph was probably very smart. And we see throughout the story he was a gifted administrator. He probably was better than his brothers at administrating flocks and herds and fruits like a roll of that. But then his dad gives him a robe, and he stops working and he starts managing. And just put yourself in that position for a minute.
Yeah, like good. Philip has 3 brothers, and in fact, his younger brother's name was Joseph, ironically. And we make jokes with him like, you're the golden child. but you have the coat of many colors. But that's like if mom and dad took you to Mervyn's to buy, Mervyn's is no longer, but Mervyn's for your nice jacket to go to a prom or something. But then she takes Joseph to Macy's or Capitol or something like that. And how would you feel about that? Yeah, not too happy. Go.
Yeah, we always had a really healthy competition in my family. So I remember once my older brother and I would always do really stupid things to keep each other, just that sibling thing, right? And one time we're in a room, we had two beds lined up here, right? And I came and said, hey, let's do a push-up contest. It's just dumb. No reason to do push-up contest. I just want to make my brother angry. So he gets down in full push-up position, starts cranking him out, and he can't see my knees because I'm in the beds. I'm on my knees. And I'm just like cranking up push-ups. Look at me go. And he gets so angry at me because I told him like years later. But I think about that in context of this, right? How brothers and siblings get. I could tell you stories that have been about punking each other all the time. But imagine in that context of family and rivalry and siblings, you being one of the 11, and that brother that always punks you, all of a sudden you are in the road going, hey, here I am.
And it probably was different too because you all love each other. But with these brothers, they also were the sons of the unloved wife. Yes. You know, and sons and mothers are very close. See your mom hurt. I mean, there's something protective that sons have towards their mothers.
David's right on this point. I think the most powerful bond in the universe is mother-son. I'd be willing to be pushed off that, but I think it's probably the most powerful bond we experience in life. Mother to son. Father-daughters have very special bonds, but there is something different about the mother-son bond.
So continuing, Joseph, he's a young 17-year-old, he had a dream, and I don't believe that he was arrogant and bragging. I think he just was clueless, or just innocently saying, had a pure heart, hey, and then it became even more, listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves out of the grain out in the field, and suddenly my sheep rose and stood upright, while your sheep, which represents them, all gathered around mine and bowed down to it. His brothers said to him, do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us? And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. But you know, Joseph didn't read their faces, their anger, their irritation, their jealousy, their resentment. So then he goes, oh yeah, I have another dream.
You guys don't understand this here. I have another dream.
I have another dream. You think that was good? I had another dream. This time, the sun and moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me. And the word says that he actually told his dad too. And his dad rebuked him and said, are you saying that your mother and I and your brothers will bow down to you? So later on, and let me go back. So later on, the brothers go out to Shechem. And he is told by his father, I want you to go and check up on your brothers. Because he's at home with dad. He's sitting at his feet. He's having foundation time with his father. He's not working or maybe doing administration. And he goes to go find his brothers to give a report. But of course, he's wearing his robe, which stands out like a sore thumb. And he's far away, and they're seeing it. And they're like, here comes that dreamer. So if you're reading it, it's not saying, here comes the favored son. They are angry with him over his dream. I mean, they have been commiserating over it and angry. And he starts coming towards him, and they start conspiring. We're going to get him, and we're going to murder him, and he's going to get his due. And it was his oldest brother, Reuben, who said, no, don't hurt him. So what happens, it says, when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him. They tore off his robe, the ornate robe he was wearing, and they took him and they threw him into the pit, into the cistern. The cistern was empty. There was no water in it. So my mind is like, how deep was it? It was cold. Were there spiders? There's you know, and some of the other biblical commentaries, I don't know if it's, I should have written it down, but you guys got to know when I can't sleep at night, I'm reading stuff on my phone all the time. So it said they really believe that Simeon might have been the one that was the most aggressive, angry, and had thrown him very viciously, and might have thrown stones down upon him. I'm thinking, is it dark? Did they put a cover on the well? So I'm thinking, okay, how long did he stay in there? Was he screaming and crying for the whole time? And here's what's interesting. After they do it, they sat down to eat their meal. They looked up and saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. So there's a caravan coming. They're all going down to Egypt. They're taking their wares. Ishmaelites were his cousins. Ishmaelites were his cousins. He's human trafficking. He's being sold as a slave. He's being sold as a slave. Judah said to his brothers, "What will we gain if we kill our brother and cover his blood? Let's sell him. Let's get some money. Let's not lay hands on him. After all, he is our brother. So it's not that bad. We're not going to kill him. We'll just sell him as a slave. He's our own flesh and blood." His brothers agreed.
So a shekel isn't really a currency, it's a weight. So a shekel, we don't really know exactly how much a shekel is, but somewhere between 7 and 17 grams, on average about 10.5 grams seems to be silver. 20 shekels of silver, so 20 times 10.5 grams of silver. Varying weights and time. These are actually, the top shekel there is actually from about 300 years before Christ, and the bottom shekel, the silver one, is about 50 years before Christ. But you kind of get a sense it's not really that it's not worth something per se, it's just the weight. Shekel weighed about 2/4, 2.5 quarters. Okay.
So side note, I'm sorry, it just makes me laugh remembering this. When we were in Texas, Philip got shingles. It was really bad. But he told everybody he had shekels. Like
Language disorder. I wish I had shekels. Hammurabi's code discovered in 1901 is from about 1800 to 2000 years before Christ. One of the most important pieces of Akkadian language that's available today. And what we have available is 288 laws, which I was reading through in preparation for this. And what's fascinating is that this is roughly corresponds to the Middle Bronze period, which is the time of Joseph. And it says in the next slide, I think there's some things here, but 252. So, if a slave is killed, essentially 252 says, if the servant be a man, he shall pay 1/3 manna of silver. Now, a manna is 60 shekels, so a third is 20 shekels. So the going price of slaves at time of Joseph is 20 shekels. So the biblical narrative fits exactly right into the historical context. Okay. Oh, and then just because I like business, I had to find
he
some
likes
more.
wraps.
So you just go down one more. So somebody actually, I took this from someone's blog. You can see the URL there. But essentially, they kind of said they went through the Old Testament and said, what did things cost in shekels? And the next slide, they kind of correlated it to dollars. It just was interesting to me. So roughly, Joseph was sold based on 2012 prices of silver, $350. I don't know what that price is, but so flour you could buy for about $10 in 2012. A big container of flour. A slave was worth about 350. Don't quote me on that. And then Joseph's journey is about 200 miles. So that's from here to Seattle on foot. But I just want you to get a sense that he was a slave. He's not getting any kind of cushy ride on this. He's not going SUV style. He's walking, probably being pushed around. So that was a very interesting transition for Joseph to go from coat of many colors to walking as a slave to here to Seattle over terrain that's nothing like a road.
And the one thing that I started doing more, because David's been encouraging us to read and reread the text and think about the humanity of it. That Joseph was a 17-year-old boy. He was terrified. And he was, who knows if he was shackled or not, but he was with a group of other slaves. He is walking. Who knows what kind of assaults or abuse he undertook during that time. The hunger. When you start putting yourself in Joseph's shoes at that age, it's terrifying. The tears, the loss of his father, the thoughts he was having, how could they hate me this much? So once he got to Egypt, Potiphar, an Egyptian, who was one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard, kind of like he could be the executioner too, bought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him there. So he's passed on. He is purchased twice. The Lord was with Joseph so that he prospered, and he lived in the house of his Egyptian master. When his master saw that the Lord was with him and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did, Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. Potiphar put him in charge of his household and entrusted his care to everything he owned. From the time he put him in charge of his household and of all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian. Why? Because of Joseph. The blessing of the Lord was on everything. Everything Potiphar had, both in the house and in the field. So Potiphar left everything he had in Joseph's care. With Joseph in charge, he did not concern himself with anything except the food he ate. I like that because I'm thinking, you wake up like, what am I going to eat today? That was it. What am I going to do? What am I going to eat today? So he was a handsome young man, and someone took notice of him, Mrs. Potiphar. And after a while, she wanted to seduce him. And before I used to say that, I can't believe that she's always trying to flirt with him. But what ended up happening is she just saw him and she said, I want you. I want you to go to bed with me. And she kept on nagging him, trying to seduce him, wearing him down. But did he give in? No. He stood his ground. He said he refused. With me in charge, my master doesn't concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns he has entrusted to my care. No one is greater in this house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. And I love this. How could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God? He had a reverence for God. And though she kept trying to wear him out, he could not be worn out. And I thought it was interesting that happened on one day that all the household servants were gone. She probably ordered them out, and this has been a scene that has been seen before. And I had to take a step back this morning. The Lord said, Mrs. Potiphar was a broken woman. Have mercy on her, Jocelyn. Have grace for her. Because even though she was doing all this, there was something in her life too. The humanity of putting humanity on people in the Bible that you read. She didn't have a relationship with her father. She did with her husband, who knows it, her father, her mother. But this is where she was at, trying to find satisfaction and temporary love with someone that could maybe take her pain away. So today I thought, I'm going to look at Mrs. Potiphar differently. So she tried to force him to be with her, and he lost another coat. They took it from him. One coat over at the well, now the coat at the bed. So he lost two coats. Potiphar came, he was angry. I think he was mad because he kind of knew Joseph was to be trusted and had integrity, but he had to be the man and put him in prison, put him in the king's prison. And even there, it was very much like a pit again. He's in a pit again, lost his second coat. The Lord was with him, found favor and kindness. The prison warden saw his administration skill and put him in charge of the other prisoners. And he didn't have to worry about anything because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. While he was there were two prisoners in there. The chief cupbearer, who gave the wine to the Pharaoh, to the king, and a baker. They both ticked off Pharaoh and he threw him in jail. So the chief cupbearer, I forgot to put this part. Joseph saw them one day because he's beginning to read faces. Remember, he didn't read his brothers' faces, they were mad. He has learned through this pain how to read faces and to connect with other people. And he looked at his two of the prisoners and said, why is your face so downcast? He's grabbing a clue, finally. And they said, we have these dreams, and these dreams, we don't know the interpretation. He gives honor to God, says God reveals the interpretation of the dreams. So the chief cupbearer says, I saw this vine, it had 3 branches, it ripened in the grapes. I took the clusters and I squeezed the grapes into Pharaoh's cup and I put the cup into Pharaoh's hand. The Lord will reveal the dream. And he said, in 3 days, those 3 branches are 3 days, you are going to be going back into Pharaoh's palace and you are going to be serving him again. He said, but when you go back, just remember me. Just remember me. And sometimes if it benefits you, you remember. And sometimes when you don't, he doesn't. We'll go on to that later. So then the baker, poor guy, he's like, oh, you got a lottery interpretation. I'm going to tell you, my dream is going to be awesome. Because, I had 3 baskets of bread on my head. In the top basket were all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh, but there were birds eating them out of my basket. And Joseph says in his interpretation, the 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift off your head and impale your body on a pole, and the birds will eat away your flesh.
Have a good day.
And can you imagine, you haven't been distressed before? You are really messed up. So, you want to go on to the next one, Phil? Okay. So then later
You know
on.
what? Before Johnson checks on this, I'll go back to the next slide. Roughly, Joseph's in prison from Shechem until he becomes a ruler in Egypt, about 13 years. Jeez. The guess is he's probably in Potiphar's house about 2 or 3, and he spends 10 years in prison in the pit.
So about 17 to 20 with Potiphar, and then 20 to 30 in prison.
Yeah, and those are based largely, we know the Bible tells us 17 to 30 as far as the time he spent in each section based on extra biblical sources. Probably 20 to 30 he was in prison when this happened. So he's about 28 when he's been 8 years in prison, let's say, when he gets the dream of the cupbearer and baker. And it's 2 more years after that.
Yeah, so he is forgotten. The cupbearer never tells Pharaoh. And so then all of a sudden Pharaoh has a dream. And he dreams that there are 7 cows. He's standing on the Nile. And there are 7 cows, plump and attractive cows can be. And plump, and they fed in the reed grass. And then all of a sudden, 7 other cows, all scrawny and emaciated, come out. And they stood by the other cows. And then the ugly, thin cows ate the 7 attractive, plump cows. Imagine that dream. And then Pharaoh woke up, and then he fell asleep, and he dreamed a second time, and there were 7 ears of grain, plump and good, growing on one stalk, and then after them sprouted 7 ears, thin and blighted by the east wind. The thin ears swallowed up the 7 plump full ears, and Pharaoh awoke, and it was a dream. And what happened?
We take a commercial break. This message is brought to you by our sponsors. Eat more chicken. And then we just stop. We just for a moment. I feel like this next slide is probably the most important question of the day. We've had a relationship with Popeye's Chicken now for about 2 or 3 months.
Well, no, since Texas, we always ate chicken.
Sandwich.
We always ate that chicken.
I don't know, about 2 months ago, it seems like we went to Popeye's, and before the sandwiches were famous, and the lady says, "You should try the sandwich." Like, we go home.
It's new. You should
She
try
buys one. It was amazing. For the next 3 or 4 days, we're ordering Grubhub chicken sandwiches being delivered, and all of a sudden they're out everywhere.
I think they have a drug in there because it's addictive.
It's called MSG or something, right? But they got, I think they had like a labor crisis with domestic labor or something, so they had to shut down the places that make it. Well, they just came back, and so I just want to ask quickly. This is not reflective of spiritual status, but if you prefer Chick-fil-A, would you just raise your hand?
I've only eaten Chick-fil-A once.
Popeyes.
I've never had either.
Just close your eyes. Okay.
This is what they need to know today.
This is my challenge to you before we go on in this message. Try a Popeye sandwich before you die. Where are they? Popeyes.
Where's that?
There's one in Lancaster and
And one on Mission.
Where's the other one? Mission? Yeah, one in Mission, one in Lancaster. See? People who don't know. Thank you for this brief commercial. Back now to our message.
Anyways, Joseph said to Pharaoh, the dreams of Pharaoh are one. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7, did they shake the tent first before he visited Pharaoh? Oh, so this was interesting. You want to talk about that?
Yes.
He got pulled out of jail.
Yeah, they shake them. This is interesting because it helps us to date Joseph where he's at. There were certain pharaohs in Egypt that were from Canaan, and if those kings and pharaohs had been in place, he wouldn't have had to shave. So the Egyptians would have made Joseph shave because he was a Semite. So this kind of helps with kind of putting Joseph in context of time.
They all basically shaved in those days. If they wanted hair, they would wear wigs.
There you go. Yeah.
So he revealed what the dreams meant. He said, 7 years of plenty, you will have lots of the agriculture will just flourish, grains and everything. But after that, 7 years of famine. 7 years of famine will consume the land like nothing you have ever seen before. It will be very severe. I thought this was interesting. And the doubling of Pharaoh's dream means that the thing is fixed by God, and God will shortly bring it about. And I have a lot of dreams. Not all of them are what I would say from the Lord, but there's a few that are. And I know the ones that mean something when I dream them 3 times. And when I dream things 3 times, it is happening.
There's an inscription on the island of Seal. This probably dates about 300 years before Christ, but it actually references Pharaoh Dozier. Oh, I'm saying that wrong. Dozier or Joser. And during his reign, it says the inscription states, among other things, that they were preparing for 7 meager years and 7 rich years. And it mentions this character named Imhotep, in which there's quite a bit of interesting dialogue in the scholarly data. Is this Joseph? Is it not? You could go search that name, Imhotep, and you'll find all kinds of people on both sides of it. The most important thing to me is not that it proves this is Joseph, but more that it references probably this specific event. Certainly famines are common in Egypt. This is not the issue. The issue is the inscription reads that they were preparing. They had 7 meager years, and it was a preparation for the 7 rich years. Actually, they have this backwards on the inscription is backwards, but it references, I believe, the exact same event. It's written probably about 700 years after, but it's interesting. As Joseph,
Did you want this one?
Okay, go. And one more. This is the first time.
Technical
Hey,
difficulty.
it's our first time taxing.
Did a good job.
Okay, so one thing I really love, so Joseph, as he reveals his dreams to Pharaoh, right? We learn that Joseph is extremely gifted, right? We know his dad saw this when he was 17. And maybe his dad did the wrong thing, putting him above his siblings in that fashion. The coat was probably a poor choice, right? But essentially, that's an Amazon warehouse in the left. This is supply chain management kind of industry. I'm related to that industry in procurement. But I want you to think about this. Joseph had to forecast consumption. He had to estimate the savings rate of grain. He had to warehouse the grain, come up with a distribution plan, and then he used that to consolidate the power of Pharaoh. He used his economic position. He used his monopoly to consolidate power. Essentially, Pharaoh owned all the land and all the people. It's amazing. I don't know what I feel about that. This is an amazing plan. Joseph is not someone to be trifled with. Don't look at Joseph as some dumb Hebrew slave. Joseph is uneducated in the sense of school, but Joseph is brilliant.
So he ended up saying, what you should do, Pharaoh, is for this problem of the 7 good years and the 7 meager years, is to find a wise man who can take care of this. And Pharaoh said, can we find any other man like this who has the Spirit of God in him? And he takes off what Joseph is wearing and puts on a robe. He gets a new coat. This time he will not lose it. But he gets put with a new coat. He gets put with a signet ring, and he is given complete power over the distribution of all of the grain, the saving of it. And then when the Egyptians are all hungry, he has them sell their land. They go to become slaves for Pharaoh. He buys the livestock. He owns it all. He owns it all. But he was good to the people because the storehouses were in each of the cities. So when they needed it, he sold it to them. When Jacob says, we're going to die here in Canaan. Jacob, who is Israel, we're going to die to his sons. He goes, why are you looking at each other? Like, who's going to do this? Who's responsible? Who's going to do this? I heard there's grain for sale in Egypt. Go down there and buy grain for us. Okay, so they end up coming. And when they come in, they go and they bow, just like Joseph's dreams, to Joseph. And Joseph recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him. He is not that same 17-year-old boy. We have this joke. When we watch movies, I can see someone and I don't know what their faces are, and I'll say, hey, that is so and so from, you know, you just kind of know that was the actor from when they were young. Their faces. They didn't recognize him. He assimilated into Egyptian life. He looked like an Egyptian. He walked like an Egyptian. Sorry, it just. So.
You have to admit, that would have been a very satisfying moment, though.
Yeah. You want to talk about this?
Yeah. So, I think you guys are probably pretty familiar with the story, even though we're going high level. After this first meeting with the brothers, Joseph engaged in a series of really interesting tests, right? He takes Reuben or Simeon, he ties him up, puts him in jail, he sends him back with grain, he puts the monies in the sack. They come back with double money, he threatens them, he sends them off again, he puts the cup in Benjamin's sack. They come back and there's this dialogue back and forth. Some people think that Joseph missed the mark here. I'll be honest, if you just read it, it's very fascinating. And some people think that Joseph was testing his brothers to see if they had changed before he trusted his heart to them. But after a series of tests and things.
Yeah, so when he heard them talking, there was an interpreter, because for all they knew, he only spoke Egyptian, but he understood Hebrew still. And so while they're talking, and Reuben's like, man, this is happening because I told you we shouldn't have laid our hands on Joseph. They thought he was dead. They weren't sure. And he heard how Reuben said he had wanted to save Joseph. So when I told Philip, the second in line was Simeon. I wondered if initially he wanted to put Reuben in as the oldest, or perhaps, like what the other text said, Simeon was angry with the mean one, and he put him and bound Simeon in front of them. That the stress and that panic and that trauma that he had being bound in front of them, being sold to the Ishmaelites, was now on their faces, their terror. So later on, when they come back the second time, this is where I feel my heart is everything that Dr. Manoff has shared with us about opening up your basement to Jesus, getting naked before him, and just letting those emotions. Up until this time, you're only reading in the scripture the facts. Joseph did this, Joseph thought that. When Joseph saw his brothers the first time, he had to excuse himself, go into another room, and he wept. Okay, that bubbling up is coming up. This last time, when he saw Benjamin too, he could not control himself like he had before. All those who stood beside him, he cried, make everyone go out for me. So all of his employees, I guess, all left. No one stayed with him that were Egyptian. When Joseph made himself known to his brothers, that's the climax of the story. You know, you have those 5 parts of a story. That's that, you're building up in it. And he wept aloud so that the Egyptians heard it and the household of Pharaoh heard it. And Joseph said to his brothers, I told Philip it was like he said, ta-da, surprise, I am Joseph, you know? And I just had to laugh thinking, they're like, oh my gosh, this is Joseph. Is my father still alive? For they were dismayed at his presence. They were fearful and terrified. And then they start, when they're freaking out, and he calms their heart by saying, it was not you who sent me here, but God. What maturity Joseph has. He has made me, this jumped out at me too, a father to Pharaoh. How young was Pharaoh? He looked up to Joseph. And he has made me the Lord of all his house and ruler over all of Egypt.
And Joseph is probably 40 at this time when he sees his brothers. Yeah, the last thing we want to just talk about before we get to some dialogue things is the last request that Joseph had is that he'd be taken back to the promised land. And we see this. So Joseph would be 110 years. So he spent the first 17 in Canaan. He spent 30 as a prisoner, then 80 he was free. But he left and he went back to his home. And God kind of returned him to the place where he started.
Yeah, and so after they revealed, he sent them back. He brought Israel back. He brought Jacob. The Pharaoh sent wagons to carry the wives and the children, and it was that long trek. And again, we didn't have this up here, but when Joseph saw his father, for the first time since he left to go to check on his brothers, again he wept. That cleansing, that forgiveness, the the that satisfaction, the culmination of such a horrible experience. His journey, his experience was terrible.
And the Bible says some amazing things. So Joseph was 17 when he left. So he had 17 years with his father. Once his father comes back to Egypt, he lives 17 years. Amazing.
Wow.
He gets all that time back.
Wow.
Right to the very end.
Wow.
So we have some takeaways, and we got 4 slides here because Josh and I had a couple that we kind of really liked together, and then we have some personal takeaways. So Jocelyn actually brought this to my attention. There were 3 roads in the story. The first road, he gets ripped off in violence, right? But every time he gets a road, his circumstances shift. So road 1, he becomes a slave. Road 2, he becomes a worse slave.
A prisoner.
Prison. Road 3, becomes a ruler. And some of this thought is just think about your own heart, right? The Lord is always transitioning. We are people in process, right? The Lord is taking coats off of you, parts of your life, putting them back on. Sometimes the road is you're going to be a parent. You're going to go through a crisis. But another road is coming. Yeah. Oh, this one, I was so fascinated because I often think about this just because I work for a software company, and I'm always thinking about the biblical stories kind of in that context. That just the way my brain works. I love that Jacob saw Joseph's gifting at a young age. The Bible says, "Raise up the child in the way that they should go, not in the way you want them to go." And he recognized that gifting. Again, we can argue about whether he instantiated that well, but he saw it and he started to let him practice it. All the way through this story, okay, Joseph is incredible at what he does. And I love that. And I want you to think about yourself, right? Whether you're in the pit at work, whether you love what you do or you hate what you do, I believe God has called you to practice a godly excellence. In the very pit of the earth, Joseph decides, hey, I may be buried in this prison, but I'm going to run it with all my heart. He was excellent. He was the kind of employee I would hire. The best gifts I've ever received from my employers, and I've had 2 in the recent 5 years, and it hasn't always been this way, to be honest with you, is when they say to me, Philip, I love having you on this team. I don't even worry about you. And I had a recent boss say that to me. I just hand things to you, and I know that they get done. I show up to meetings prepared. I handle the accounts. If there's a crisis, they're not even worried about it because they know how much I handle it. I've handled it. That is what God is asking us to do. And to me, that's just a powerful takeaway from the story. Whatever you do, work heartily. The word there is exude, out of your soul, out of your psyche. Whatever you do, do it with your whole heart, your whole body, as unto the Lord, not unto man. And that's just
I have to say that watching, one of the things I fell in love with Philip back when we were 18 is I watched him for a while. Stop this. But I loved his character. I did. I loved his character. We had a ton of dishes. You know, when I couldn't stand, Phil was helping with household stuff, and there were a ton of dishes on our counter. And someone came to visit, and they said, you know, doesn't your dishwasher work? And I said, yeah, he does. I'm just giving him time off. Okay. Okay, here's my takeaways. So the pit, Genesis 37:24, and he took him and threw him into a pit. The pit was empty, there was no water in it. And I'm thinking Joseph was empty. He had what he learned about the Lord just those 17 years that carried him, which is a tribute to Jacob, all through the rest of his life. He was 17, the pit was empty, there was no water in it. What I kept noticing is like when then he goes from the pit to Potiphar's house, the Lord was with Joseph. He was with him. And sometimes we're going through life and we are like a slave, but a slave to our past. But the Lord is with you. The Lord is with you. And he will bless you. He will bless you. Then he went to prison. My Baptist roots are coming out. I have all the keys. Here. Yes, Potiphar prison, and the Lord was with Joseph and showed him steadfast love and gave him favor. He was in prison, and he had favor because the Lord was with Joseph. And then he went to the palace. Can we find a man like this in whom is the Spirit of God? It's the story of Joseph was one to me of he had this journey of pain. Oh, another P. and he had all this pain, but he prospered. I can't stop. So, okay, one more. Oh my gosh, the word purpose. The Lord will fulfill his purpose for me. Your steadfast love, O Lord, endures forever. And some of you may not know, after Mariah, oh my gosh, I had postpartum. I had postpartum depression. It was a very dark time. I was in the pit. I did not know what was going on. And then very similar with a P. I did not know what was going on, and I would journal, Lord, where are you? And I kept calling on
Persistent.
persisting, pursuing him. And then God just met me there, even though it was so dark. And I waited a year because my mom died in 95. I got diagnosed with vascular necrosis in my hips. Bill and I were youth pastors out in Dallas, Oregon, and because we said that we were looking into the active gifts of the Holy Spirit, they kicked us out of church and fired us. So we lost that. Bill found out his company was being sold. This was all within 6 months. Wow. His company, and I had a new baby and an 18-month-old. And he found out that his company was being sold, didn't know if he would have a job. And then my grandfather died. And then 2 months after that, my uncle died. And a month after that, my other uncle died. And then Phil's grandma died. So to me, it was a really dark time. And even though I didn't feel God there, he was there. When I read the story of Joseph, I'm sure there were many times he felt God was not there. But when you know the Lord and you taste and see that he is good, you can't deny him. And we've gone through some hard times, and yet the Lord continues to just assure us. So I have been really doing great. 3 weeks walking without a cane or crutches, and then this week. But I'm not discouraged about it. Because I know that when this happens, I have a new thing called lay and pray. And so, so when I tell people, hey, I'm town, it's my lay and pray time, I really pray.
You want to
You change it to prone and pray.
Because of my postpartum, my doctor put me on Prozac. It was perfect. I'm a kindergarten teacher.
I want to just pray with you guys as we close this out. Josh and I want to pray over you to have the blessing of Joseph. That no matter what you are called to do in life, no matter what your occupation is, no matter where in the hierarchy of things you are, God wants to be present with you. Joseph succeeded in everything he did because God was with him. The foundation of our existence, you guys, the foundation of all that we do is that God is with you. And if God is with you, the New Testament says